Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Q&A of Shirley. I'm Dominique O'Neill. I am a programmer at SF DocFest, and I am joined here today with director and executive producer Pam Miller. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Shirley's such a great character and has amazing claim to fame. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came across Shirley and her story?
Well, I have known Shirley through the years since I started covering racing. She was definitely someone who was a role model for a lot of women coming up. And she was also the most famous as far as being a winner and a champion. So through the years, I got to know her. And then about 10 years ago, she and I started talking about how to tell her story. A lot had happened since the motion picture Heart Like a Wheel, and nobody had told her story in like 20 years. And she was not that she was being forgotten, but I think she was a little concerned about her legacy. And so it literally took until about 3 years ago to finally get greenlit and put her story back on the screen and bring a whole new generation up to speed. So through those last 10 years, we really got close, and I really got to dig into her story, her background, her family, all the ups and downs that people hadn't seen, hadn't read about, and learn a lot. So that's kind of how it's developed.
Oh. Can you talk about maybe a little bit about your background and how that meeting would have happened?
Well, I have been a sports live event sports producer for years. I started right out of college in the early 90s. I was producing first football and NHL features and learning the trades in the truck, and eventually graduated to get the opportunity at ESPN to become involved with auto racing, and worked my way up the ranks, produced Formula One, produced some NASCAR, IndyCar, all kinds of auto racing. And since then, I have been producing live events for pretty much every network at some point
Wow.
over the last 30 years. And currently, I'm a coordinating producer for Fox on NASCAR races. I've also developed racing series for network TV, and then I've done several documentaries and television, historic television shows as well. So my paths have crossed with a lot of racers through the years. And Shirley being, of course, top of the list because, having few women role models. I mean, she was always at the top of the list.
Right. Amazing. Can you talk a little bit about those 10 years and working on her story and drawing stuff out of her?
Well, when we started, it was a get to know you phase. And we had talked to various networks about doing the story and got turned down, got passed over for other women or other stories or things that they felt were higher priorities. And then it really started kicking in about right after the pandemic when things changed. Conversations started changing in 2016, 2017 about women. People started getting more interested in women. And also, I think the NHRA realized that they had a personality that people cared about. She had lines at her autograph sessions. Fans came to see her. I think they saw some value in telling her story. She also had a reputation of being pretty tough, very straightforward. And I think there was some intrepidation as far as, what she might say, what she might do. But I think as she and I built our trust, talking through her story and what she wanted to tell, and the NHRA, the National Hot Rod Association, they saw the potential in the story. And then the timing at Fox, with Ed being a partner with the NHRA and telling women's stories and seeing the success of some of the women's stories we had been telling, everything kind of came together. So once we got through that point, Shirley and I started going through her archive, and we had another producer on this project, Cindy Sisson, who also assisted, and she would dig up old film, and we all worked together to try to find the right assets to tell her story. And she really had never had the opportunity. And then we made the decision to have her tell the story. If you watch the film, the majority of it is her telling her story in different places, different phases of her life. And that sadly, there's a lot left to tell. I mean, there's still things that we couldn't fit into the time frame But she was very good at telling details. She's got total recollection of everything, almost too much recollection still. But she was able to, keep her personality, be herself, but tell her story in a way that I think I've heard nothing but I never knew from people that were her contemporaries since. I was with some of the icons of drag racing recently, like Don Prudhomme, even Don Garlitz, who's a dear friend now, but was her fiercest rival. They were all like, we didn't know. We had no idea. And I think that's what we uncovered. And also, I think years later, like there's one time frame when she's winning championships and you're telling the story in the early 80s till her crash, the change after her crash. But as time has gone on, people do look back and realize, like, those cars were bombs when she was driving them. I mean, whether it was a funny car or a top fuel car, they were bombs. They were nasty crashes. There were people who didn't survive those crashes. It was really beyond daredevil. It was insanity at some places, and no guardrails, potholes on, drag strips. I mean, the things that they put up with, and including her. And I think now looking back, they realized not only was she facing that all the guys faced, but she was also battling, and she was a mother. She was a young mother. She was, married. She was battling the guys. She was working on the cars. She was working on the finances of the cars. And yet she was still focusing, raising a young son, and beating them when they were giving her so much harassment and beyond the racetrack, that and between the fans and the competitors, it wasn't an easy ride. Anyway, so the more we talked about all those stories, and the more that we sifted through all the things that she had collected, films, photos, and all that, it just started coming together. And over the last couple of years, the result is what you see on the screen.
I want to go back to something that you said about how Shirley's a bit of a straight shooter. And I'm curious what that's like as a filmmaker and editing with somebody who says exactly what's on their mind.
I love it. I mean, I encouraged it. I tried
Mhm.
to capture it. There's reactions, there's smiles, there's sadness, there's a lot of things. And I think some of it came out of the trust that she had with me, but I've seen it with other people. I mean, she'll tell you, like we say in the film, like if you're a bad cook, she's going to tell you. If you're wearing blue and she thinks you should wear pink, she's going to tell you. I mean, she doesn't hold back. And I think that's part of what makes her endearing to the fan base and endearing in sports, and has made her the icon that she is of the 20th century, because she never held back, whether it was on the track, off the track. She said her opinion. She didn't care if it was popular. She still doesn't care if it's popular. And but yet she can also be the most, caring, helpful, thoughtful person as well. So I mean, she's definitely the best of all those worlds. And I think that it's a treat, having gone through years of doing projects where people maybe weren't as straightforward, or not afraid to say what they think. It's kind of refreshing to work with someone who does that.
Yeah, I bet. So can you talk about like the flip side of that, which is the conflict side that she had with the other drivers and how that contributed to her public image?
Oh, I think the fact that she never backed down from them. She never backed down from a fight. She never backed down from a match race, a challenge. That resonated in the papers. That resonated, the headlines were always, Shirley Muldowney, fights for this, or Shirley Muldowney, shouldn't be here. Like, and I'm not kidding when those headlines were very blunt as she was. But those conflicts kind of made her what she was, made her a champion. She backed it up on the track. She wasn't just
Mhm.
going after them. If they came up to her and said horrible things, she would go beat them at the track. I mean, she beat her ex on the line at the US Nationals in 1982. And, in reality, her ex boyfriend, Connie Coletta, she beat him more than anybody else. I mean, she took it to the track, and people knew the drama that was going on between them, and she still went out there and beat him. She was able to like take all that as motivation, and also focus with all the noise. I mean,
Mhm.
we're talking about crews that would fight. She made all her guys wear pink so that the other teams picked on her team. There was never an easy path for her, but she used it as motivation. And she always says, I'll back it up on the track. And she did, which made her stand out from other women who just showed up or
Mhm.
just ran a lap or, hey, I'm just happy to be here. And that was not Shirley. Shirley was never happy to be there. She wanted to be winning and going
Mhm.
fast. And that's what she was about.
Yeah, total icon. And on that note about, when she was racing and she was in it to win it at any cost, and how that puts her at odds with other drivers, that included the other women, as we see in your film. And at the same time, she's just by virtue of being there and doing this, she's paving the way for women in the sport. And I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about that duality.
That is the most interesting part is that she made in the era she raced very few women because she was so good that she was always racing the guys. And now the younger generation, they know she's there.
Mhm.
They know she won championships. They know she opened a door, but they don't really go seek her out. There's very few that come go seek her out. They don't understand her story. I'm hoping a few of them have said they've seen it, and I'm hoping that they learn. Um, but there's such a different mentality with these girls now that they're there. They have other mentors. They don't seem to want to go to talk to her, where she's got a lot of relevant experience to help them. And it is interesting that they're winning champion. They've won a few championships in events themselves, and yet they kind of have ignored her. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that's going to change. I think there's some of the guys have actually been going to her and talking to her, um, but I'm hoping that that will change. I think it's an interesting dichotomy that here's this woman that they wouldn't be standing there if it wasn't for her. They wouldn't have sponsors. There wouldn't be interest.
Mhm.
Um, Yet they kind of have tried to leave her in the past. And luckily for her, the fans won't. The fans, all ages, even very young people, kids, I've seen it. They come up and they relate to her. So hopefully that can change. Hopefully this film is changing the narrative of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate this film because I have, for as somebody who does not follow motorsports, I think like, you know, irregardless, her story is amazing and there's so much credit owed to her and so much respect due there. So I really appreciate you bringing the story to film. And I want to talk about too the footage from the career. I think as like a professional sport, there must have been all kinds of footage you were working with and material. So I'm wondering if you can talk about combing through all of that.
Well, yeah, we had a lot of home movies that her son had taken, even as a kid, that were she had never seen. They were
Mm,
pristine, which was a gold mine. The NHRA had all her big events and some early films. There was a lot there. We were really lucky that the NHRA had the archive organized the way it was, but you still had to go through, each heat, each round, each there's just a lot there. Um, as a filmmaker, I'm always like, oh, is there more? Is there more? Is there more? But I mean, it took hours and hours to go through that. Anyway, but a great credit to the NHRA. They had a great archivist working with us, and they were very helpful in trying to dig up as much as we could.
mhm. Um, I love the pink armchair in the garage. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I was trying to think about how to do the interview, and she's known for pink,
Mhm.
and her cars are pink, her uniforms were pink, her helmets are all pink, and I thought, well, she needs to sit in something pink. And I just had this inspiration to find the right pink chair, and I think I did, and it was just a great contrast of elegance, which she
Mhm.
deserved, comfort, and her style. And she did have, if you look at the old film and pictures, she had a lot of style, and I thought, I think this will work. And when we set it up, it was very much, um, you know, it was confirmed. It's funny that we donated the chair to the North Carolina Motorsports Hall of Fame. And
Mhm.
there's a little corner with Shirley with the chair, and people go in there now and sit down and take pictures in the chair, which is kind of funny.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Um, so she's retired from racing now, but I'm curious, what is her life like in terms of, does she own some of her cars? Does she take them out on the tracks for fun? Um, what is her relationship with
Well,
racing and driving now?
those cars you can't really take out on the track for fun because they go 300 miles an hour, and some of the old ones are pretty dangerous. Her cars are in Don Garlett's, believe it or not, his museum in Gainesville, Florida. Her helmets are there. Her one of her cars is at the Savoy Museum in Atlanta, and then I think the Smithsonian. Or if it's not there yet, it's going there. She doesn't really, every dime she made went into her team. It wasn't like a NASCAR team with millions of dollars of sponsorship. I mean, she broke even in the end, pretty much. Like, she's not living in this crazy wealthy house, or she lives pretty modest. She loves cars. She loves going fast still. But all her cars are in museums. And she's basically tries to be as involved. She's at races every weekend. She signs autographs. She has a foundation called Shirley's Kids that helps underprivileged children. So that's what she's devoted to now. She still recovers. She had that bad accident in 1984, so she gets around great. But there are some good days and bad days with that when you have such severe leg injuries. But she's pretty remarkable for 84 years old. So
yeah, wow. Okay, but not to harp on her driving now. Like, what kind of car does she drive now? Is it like
oh
a
God,
sedan or like?
I know. No, it's like a mini SUV. I think it's like a Buick something. I forget what exactly, but
Yeah.
her license plate says "I won Indy."
Oh,
So you
great.
always know it's her.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. All right. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the foundation that she's running, and if there's anybody out watching this, if
Yeah,
there's interest in.
it's called Shirley's Kids, and
Mhm.
it's with a gentleman in Texas. His name is Stan Holt, and his wife. They formed the foundation with her, and it helps underprivileged kids get experiences with cars, with visits to tracks, visits with driver, investigating STEM, helping them with the opportunities that they might otherwise not get. And it's you can go on and Google it online and find it pretty easily if you want to be involved. But she raises money at every racetrack through her autographs and posters that she sells for the kids. And then she participates in bringing those kids to the tracks and to the different shops and the different programs that they have. So it's been pretty successful over the last. They started it before the pandemic, so it's been getting more and more successful through the last 5-6 years, and a lot of kids have gotten a pretty cool experience with Shirley.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Um, so can you tell us a little bit about what is next for the film?
Well, it's still airing on Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2. You can find it. It'll be on demand soon. It will end up in streaming. The NHRA also has a fast channel. And there's some pretty cool, exciting things on the horizon. I'm not exactly privileged to tell yet, but you haven't seen the last of Shirley. But you'll be able to find it pretty soon on all the major places you would find, documentaries, movies, things like that. But right now it's still on linear and streaming on the Fox families. And there's more to come on that. So
Good. Glad to hear it.
yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you giving Shirley a chance to tell her own story firsthand, allowing us to learn about this woman and her incredible legacy. And thank you so much for being here at SF Doc Fest and spending some time with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for your interest. And we're all happy that Shirley's getting her moment.
Yeah. Total queen. Love it.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thanks.